Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's another week of FPC Radio Live. That's right. It's Monday, October the 23rd, 2023, and Week 7's almost done. We got a Monday Night Football matchup tonight. Tonight should be an interesting one with San Francisco taking on Minnesota. So, John, I told you right before we got on the air, I'm pretty sure I got just about every game I picked yesterday wrong. It's actually almost impressive, but my reverse psychology worked when it comes to the Patriots and the Bills, because I said I am no longer going to pick the Patriots unless it's against the Jets. I might have said that yesterday, Sunday morning. But I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep picking against the Patriots because at least that way, if they do lose, I'll at least be right there. But speaking of the Patriots, though, and this is a bad week for the beat reporters, John, because the last month or so, last 4 weeks, they've been just salivating at the fact that the Patriots are struggling, and Bill Belichick has taken quite a lot of heat, and it got to a point where people were reporting that maybe his job was on the line. Well, the funny thing about those reports, John, they seem to. They seem to have been more fictitious than anything, because as we learned, Belichick recently signed a contract extension, and even if it was before this season, you're probably not going to see Robert Kraft do an about face when it comes to Bill Belichick, even after a poor start like we've seen so far this year, and very likely this isn't a 5-6 year deal. This probably is for the next couple of years, and that's about, Bill Belichick's 72 years old. I mean, he's not a young guy anymore. But I think it's going to be a bad week for the radio personalities and beat reporters, because a lot of the things that they've been building up to have kind of did it. Like I said, did a nice little about face yesterday.
Well, they won. That's the most important thing.
Yeah,
but
yes.
Obviously, okay, let me just get this straight with Patriot fans, because I'm not one. So Ian Rappaport reports this yesterday that in the offseason that he signed a multi-year lucrative extension. So multi-year could be 2 years. So
right.
He might be signed.
That's kind of what I think it might is.
Right, 2024 or 2025. Okay, so the problem is when Ian Rappaport reports something good, Patriots Nation is like, this is 100% right. There's no question about it. When he reports something negatively, he's a buffoon. He's not tied in.
Well,
so you can't have it both ways, right? I mean,
no.
So
well, the original report came from, I believe, Albert Breer. So there's a lot of distrust with certain members of the media. But you're gonna see that type of behavior from every fan base in general. I mean, you're gonna see, well, if this person says one thing, we love him. If he says another, we hate him. A lot of the distrust you see in Patriots Nation comes from, and you'll know this too. I mean, it's just there's a horde of negativity or barrage of negativity that comes from this media horde. Let's put it that way. It's still early, John, and my caffeine's.
But I think you have to differentiate between talk radio and reporters.
No, not anymore, because a lot of the same reporters have basically become talk radio personalities, and I'm not saying all of them, but without naming names, a lot of them have kind of morphed into that. Well, we're going to be hot take artists and say things for a reaction, as opposed to, being a journalist, and it doesn't mean being positive. I mean, that's the one thing people confuse a lot. It's like, no, we're not asking people to be 100% positive, but it's very clear when certain people come into their stories, or you read their stories, and they have an agenda. I mean, Dan Shaughnessy is one of them. That a lot of that has to do with like the Red Sox and some other things. You see that all the time.
He bashes the Red Sox too, though.
But what I'm saying, it's very obvious when you open up one of his Patriots articles, and it's been like this for years. It's the same with people who will hold grudges. I mean, look, we're human. People have grudges. They're gonna, in a way, allow that to affect their writing. I mean, unfortunately, that's, again, not, something you want to do as a respected journalist. But getting back to the main point.
He's not a journalist, though. He's a columnist. There has to be a difference.
Well, there used to be. Again, now there really isn't much between that, a radio personality, and, they all kind of mold together, because at the end of the day, at some point they're all on TV in front of a camera or in front of a microphone.
True.
And
yeah, the lines are blurred.
Right.
So absolutely.
Exactly. So, but I do think there's a lot of distrust amongst the Patriots media and the fans, and rightfully so. I mean, this isn't, from nothing. I mean, there's reason for it. There's been a lot of, I guess, animosity, content from both fans towards reporters and vice versa. I mean, we've seen it from media members in the area. They have a very contentious relationship with some of the fans, and you know what, that stuff has been building and seething for a while. So yeah, there are certain people that will throw something out there, and immediately no one's going to believe them. And look, I mean, credibility is a thing in life. You know what I'm saying? Like, John Tomasi is never going to get the benefit of the doubt. I don't care how long he works in this in Boston, for the whole fake walkthrough tape thing. He'll never get the benefit of the doubt. And do I blame him? Blame the fans? No, of course not. And I think there's other people that have, again, kind of used let's put it this way. They've used the anonymous sources a little bit too freely. You know what I mean? Like, I think
that's normally what sources are.
Yes,
though. I mean,
yes, but this is what I'm getting at, though. This is what I'm getting at. There's I 100% believe that obviously you can't just go out there and reveal your sources, but I think over time people have realized that you can kind of just say you have anonymous sources, and the backlash, if you're wrong, isn't really backlash. So what's to say reporter A goes up and says these things about an organization and say, oh, I have, anonymous sources or inside sources that this, that, and the other. Well, a day later, you get conflicting reports from someone who's likely a little bit more respected and trusted within the media that covers that team. But there's no backlash for the guy who just says, it's just anonymous sources. What are you going to say? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, try to disprove something that you know what I mean? You can't really disprove it. But I also think that it's being used a little too much as a crutch for some of these reports, because again, John, and you'll agree. I mean, it's more about being first than being right nowadays.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a major problem with all media.
Oh, sure.
Sports,
Absolutely.
Politics, local government. Sure. So my thing is that Rappaport has that report yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one side, which is saying that Belichick re-up now, whether it's till 2024 or 2025, whatever. And then 10 days ago, Jeff Howe from The Athletic, who's a respected reporter and I think somewhat of a team-friendly reporter, had a different story saying that the Krafts, would move on from Bill Belichick. Again, that story is being leaked by the Krafts to Howe, and this story is being leaked to Rappaport by Belichick side, because there's only three people that know what Belichick's contract situation is: Jonathan Kraft, Robert Kraft, and Bill Belichick, and maybe his agent. So that's about it. So, it's kind of, a little bit of palace intrigue, to say the least. And look, even if he signed till the end of 2024, and let's say they go 4-13, Kraft can move on.
Oh, sure.
From Bill Belichick and pay him $25 million to go play golf, or try to trade him, or do whatever. I mean, he's not wedded to the guy. I mean, look, billionaires don't like to throw around money. How they become billionaires. But at some point, if it is a negative for this franchise to have a 4-13 team run by a 72-year-old coach who may have lost his fastball, then so be it. Then, he's going to have to make that business decision. I'm sure the Krafts would rather see the Patriots even get to 7-10, 8-9, and then they can let Belichick come back another year. And say, well, especially, I think we've agreed on this. If Mac Jones continues to develop and plays more like he did yesterday, then you could say, well, we have our quarterback. A lot of that's tied into the offensive line, to say the least. It played better yesterday, gave him enough time to be a competent NFL quarterback. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting stuff, to say the least. And look, they've deserved criticism the last 4 years. They're 27 and 32 since Brady left. So that's a below average team. So yeah, for a guy who, had quite a run, to now fall and act the way he does at times,
Mhm.
you know, he's gonna get some blowback from the media, and he's been getting it from the fans as well. I think it's
Yeah.
now starting to doubt him at some point. It's not no longer, you know, in Bill we trust no matter what he does, that it's going to be right.
No, and of course, I mean, but and we talked about this before. I think that the media relationship is interesting because I think there's blame to go around on both sides in terms of how that relationship has kind of unfolded. Not that Belichick would have been too incredibly different from what he is now. I do think that there's a little bit more, at least with some people, a little bit more of a personal vendetta on both sides. I mean,
True.
this isn't on one
Mhm.
side or the other. This is on both. And look, I think the fans are obviously right to criticize. You know, when your team's 1-5, and obviously now they're 2-5. Yeah, there's plenty of criticism to be thrown around. This isn't, you know, just bad luck that they're like this. But at the same time, I think their biggest issue that they or problem that they had, and look, I think, you know, they've doubted the guy. You know, not they, but people have doubted the guy's impact and continued to doubt his impact even now in his retirement years. But I think the Patriots, Bill Belichick, and this organization underestimated the actual impact Brady had. And I know that I don't mean that as a negative. It's just like when 2017 rolled around, and it's like, do I blame um, Bill Belichick for looking for the quarterback of the future? No. Tom Brady was about to be 40 years old. Like, I mean, there was no reason to believe that he was going to play at the level that he did into his 40s. There's no history of that. I mean, unless you were a honk like me who believed it, and I believed it. But you know,
I did too.
yeah. Well, but
Not
again,
to the level that he did play. That was just extraordinary.
and
I
again,
mean, seriously,
and are you going to blame Bill Belichick for trying to plan for the future? No, and I think people twisted that into, oh, he wanted to get rid of Brady, this, that, and the other. But I think he realized, like a lot of us did, like, and maybe him drafting Garoppolo was another little push for Brady. I mean, there's a lot of things happening during that time that really motivated Tom, but you know, maybe that was an extra push that gave him that little bit extra. But like at the end of the day, you know, Belichick realized, oh, okay, well, I guess Tom's still Tom, so well, we're gonna get rid of Garoppolo and try this again. So um, you know, maybe they just figured that his impact was obviously no doubt about it, how big that it was. But like, I don't know if they realized how many issues he necessarily covered up for. And I think we're seeing that now. Look, there's no coincidence, John, that the Patriots have. I mean, everything says starts since 2020. Well, what's the common denominator? No more Tom Brady. Look at the Buccaneers right now through 6 weeks. They have one of their worst offensive stretches so far to start a season in quite some time. It's not a coincidence, John, that you're getting. I mean, Baker's been fine, but it's just there's a certain level Brady being on the field elevates the team around him. And I think the Patriots underestimated. I think even they underestimated. I think his impact because again we've seen them go from perennial Super Bowl contender to bottom of the AFC East overnight, John. And yes, players change, but they changed over 20 years too. You know, like it's not like this is the first time the Patriots have had roster turnover since 2001. No, it's happened several times, and guess what? They were still in the mix every single year. They had offensive line struggles and issues and injuries. They were in the mix every single year. The difference is you don't have the greatest quarterback of all time, so yeah, you're going to have struggles. And I think even the Patriots maybe underestimated that a little bit because I think Mac's a guy that you can win some games with, but I think you need elite talent around him to really maximize his potential. Whereas with Brady, you didn't necessarily mean that. And I'm not talking about maximizing stats. I'm talking about maximizing effectiveness because, if Brady has, subpar offensive weapons, sure, his offensive stats are going to be subpar. I mean, it's just kind of how it works. Doesn't mean his impact is any less. I mean, look at 2019. I mean, yeah, they had some interesting players at the beginning of the season, but by the end of the year, it certainly wasn't the same. And that team somehow managed to win 12 games, So, um, again, I think the Patriots are in a tricky spot. Draft wise, obviously, if you're a draft nut, you don't want them to really win too many more games because you want them to get a higher draft pick. But I can never buy into losing, John. I just can't. I get, like, I understand, like, oh well, it's not going to do you any good to pick 14th. Well, I don't really care. Losing it just that's a sour taste in my mouth.
Well, don't you think it's worth it if they end up with the first pick, and the first pick is Caleb Williams, who struggled the last 2 weeks?
Well, yeah.
But let's say he turns out
guarantee.
to be this otherworldly quarterback. No, of course not. But at least you have a chance. You can't fall off the bed if you sleep on the floor. So if you get the first pick in the draft and there's this generational quarterback, at least you have a fighting chance. Again, to go 7-10, miss the playoffs, and have the 12th pick. Now, are you going to get the quarterback? I think it would be good if Mac Jones continues to play well like he did yesterday. The offensive line's button up, and now maybe you can use draft capital to build the rest of the team. Get him a wide receiver. I just don't, or whatever they need.
I just don't value that first and those high draft picks as much as some, because more often than not, it's a crapshoot. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is generational talent. He's a pretty good quarterback right now.
Yeah, they're 5-2. I mean,
yeah, well,
which is a lot better than Jacksonville normally is.
Yeah,
right?
True, but at the same time, it's like, what does 5-2 really get you? We'll talk at the end of the season, but I'm like, okay, yeah, if that's generational, is it worth going 2-14, 2-13 to marginally upgrade at quarterback?
I think they would say yes, because it's such an irrelevant organization.
Well, I'm talking about the Patriots.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah,
they'll be irrelevant too.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Is it worth it to is it worth it? Can you hear me? Did we lose John? We might have lost John.
I'm here. No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. There we go. I was starting to worry there. I didn't, too much Mac Jones talk. I understand. So, but yeah, it's just I don't know. It's too much of a crapshoot for me, and it's like, I mean, how many number one picks?
I'm sorry, I can't see to let you in.
How many of those number one overall picks really pan out and deliver like a number? I mean, look, Patrick Mahomes was the 10th overall pick. I mean, we've seen other talent get drafted later in the draft, and it's like, I think to me, it's just a crapshoot. It's not worth tanking or trying to lose. Like, I think there's so much more value, not only for the organization, but for the players to win games. I don't care if it's 5 games. I don't care, as opposed to 2, or is it 7 or what? So again, I think there's so much more value in winning as opposed to losing. And there's not too much difference. I mean, it sucks because you have to wait a little bit longer on day one to see, the Patriots pick. But at the same time, it's not worth it to me for weeks to watch them lose football games just to maybe get a chance to draft a kid that might pan out, and more likely than not will not live up to the hype of being the number one overall pick, which generally comes with the savior of the franchise title, because that's what you expect out of a number one pick.
Yeah, and look, Kansas City, they did the right thing. They continued to win with Alex Smith, right? They made the playoffs 4 out of 5 years, and then they traded up to get Mahomes because they identified him. Mahomes wasn't a surefire pick. I mean, look, you could see that he had some extreme talent, but he didn't win a lot at Texas Tech. Of course, he was playing with like plumbers and electricians
and Cliff Kingsbury.
Cliff Kingsbury. Well, see, I think the great quarterbacks overcome what they have in college. Tom Brady was in and out of the lineup, coming in when they were
like 20-4.
Right. Yeah, it was just almost like, what do we need to do to be the starting quarterback? So, and Aaron Rodgers to a point went to a Cal program that was really never much of anything, and he elevated them. And we see what Mahomes did at Texas Tech. Whereas Mac Jones, the Alabama quarterback, they're kind of like the Duke basketball players. They're playing with royalty. Like, he has better wide receivers in college than he'll ever have in the NFL, and he probably had a better offensive line at Alabama than he has now. And it's kind of startling to not have the talent around you, and yet you're facing NFL talent on the other side of the ball. So, yeah, that's all. I think most of the great quarterbacks have overcome a lot. I mean, even John Elway, who I refer to almost every show, Stanford was basically a 500 team when he was there, but he elevated them to that, and then he was ready to go in the NFL. Peyton Manning's the one guy who was the first overall pick. Tennessee was always a contender. They could never beat Florida. But again, we're talking about, once in every 20 years type talent like Peyton Manning.
And that's what I'm saying. Like that, and people, I think, constantly equate the first overall pick with being like Peyton Manning. Like it's got to be a sure thing like that, and that's the type of impact they're going to have. And like I said, more often than not, it just doesn't happen, or certainly doesn't happen over the course of over a decade plus. And to me, it's like I said, at the end of the day, it's just not worth it. I'd rather the Patriots go out and win games like this and beat the Bills. And like you said earlier, we're sitting here and we have been asking questions about the Bills because, at times they've looked great, but then they very easily, play down to their opponent. In this case, I think, that the Patriots had a lot to do with that. I think, we've already mentioned the offensive line that had a huge role in what the Patriots did yesterday and how well they played. But the reality of it is that the Bills just, right off the bat, Josh Allen throws an interception, first play of the game. And that's the biggest issue with Josh Allen, where it's like, okay, yeah, he's great. He can run. He looks like a horse galloping when he gets going. But first of all, that's not great decision-making when it comes to being a quarterback, because you're just asking for yourself to get injured. And at this rate, he's still making the same, kind of boneheaded interceptions and mistakes that he was making in year one. And that's something you don't want to see, because, you expect him at this point to have evolved. And he's been given talent around him. He's had a really good defense to play with. And, he continues to make these mistakes that, again, we sit there and watch this Bills team. And I think we both thought that maybe, they missed their Super Bowl window. And I think the further we get along and the more they play, not just great teams, but decent teams, they seem to struggle. And, someone said it on Twitter yesterday. And the funny thing is, after what we just listened to the last week or so, Sean McDermott might have the hottest seat in the AFC East, if we're thinking about it. And I know you've been critical of Sean McDermott for a while now. So this probably isn't a surprise to you. But he seems to have kind of plateaued a long time ago as a head coach. I think he had a lot of momentum early on, but at a certain point, his teams haven't evolved, and you can't just always blame it on injuries and things outside of coaching. Sometimes you just have to blame coaching, just like we were doing with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick has 6 Super Bowls as a head coach. You have 8 Super Bowls as a coordinator and a coach in this league, and yet he has about 3 years worth of equity, and then that's it. And it's like, okay, so Sean McDermott, what have you done? You know what I mean? So yeah, the criticism is warranted.
I'm pushing for George Seifert to get into the Hall of Fame because he has 2 Super Bowls as a head coach and 3 as an assistant coach. So if he has a vote, it must be 5 rings instead of 2 rings. So
right.
Just want to make sure everybody remembers those assistant coach Super Bowls, which again, I know Belichick's game plan against the Bills somehow is in the Hall of Fame when actually the MVP of the game was Otis Anderson and the Giants held the ball for 40 minutes, but everybody seems to have forgotten that. But no, I agree with Sean McDermott. And the thing is, did you see a play yesterday, a call that he made from the sideline? What would you rather have? This is like a simple question. Late in the game, right? You're down by 5. You're inside the opponent's 5-yard line. Would you rather have first and goal from the 2 or second and goal from the 1, and there's like 2 minutes left?
First and goal from the 2.
Absolutely.
Like that.
So,
yeah.
That's like elementary, right? I'm half blind and whatever. And, you're a big Patriots fan, so I understand that. But no, I'm like looking at it like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Like you want the extra play. It's not like that extra yard is going to be that difficult to pick up. Your freaking quarterback is gigantic. He ended up scoring, but you could have taken more time off the clock. And I'm like, that's just stupid.
Yeah, it's those little decisions that add up over the course of a game, and like, and that's something that you've been very critical about in his decision making in the past. So again, this team is talented. They have a lot of talent. So at a certain point, you have to start questioning, Look, the Patriots have some talent. They don't have as much talent as the Bills do. So you can understand, okay, Bill Belichick might be able to put together the perfect game plan, but if you don't have the players to execute it, well, it's kind of all for naught.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to absolve Belichick of any blame. He certainly deserves blame for the struggles that they've had through the first 7 weeks. But it's different because I feel like the Bills are greatly underwhelming, whereas they have the talent. John,
Mhm.
they have the experience. They have the recent experience. That is, obviously, the Patriots have experience, but you know what I mean. With this group,
Mhm.
they've been on the cusp, so they should be able to take the next step. And one of the reasons why teams don't do that is, well, they can't reach a next level. One, either from their quarterback, and that there's some of that going on too, but also because of coaching. Because eventually, the message brings silent. How much more can you get out of this team? And I think that's kind of where Sean McDermott has maybe fizzled out a little bit. He can't get much more out of
Mhm.
it. And look, you can point to the departure of Brian Dayball as a big reason why. Maybe he was a huge stabilizing force in all this. Who knows? There could be many reasons for it, but right now, yeah, I do think I can't again, I can't remember where I saw it on Twitter, but someone said that Sean McDermott might have the hottest seat in the AFC East, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I kind of
Could
believe
be.
it.
Yeah. I mean, look at Robert Sala's done a nice job with the Jets. You lose your
Yeah,
star
he's
quarterback.
got a
Four
free
plays
he's got a
in.
free pass for at least for
Yeah.
this year and next. I mean, without Rodgers, it's whatever.
And who exactly is going to fire him? Like there's
Right.
certain coaches that to me can't get fired because they're so big and intimidating. Like Robert Saleh, Mike Vrabel. I always thought Jack Del Rio was like, who's the person that's going to go into their office and say, "We're letting you go"? These are like giant men who look like they could rip you apart.
Not Woody Johnson.
But, no, not Woody Johnson. Woody Johnson would have someone else do it. But yeah, Saleh's got that pass this year. And look, I picked the Jets to win this division, and I maintain more today after the way Buffalo looked yesterday and the way Miami looked last night, that if Rodgers had been healthy, the Jets would win this division. They have the best defense in the division, I think, without question. Patriots probably have the second best defense in the division because Buffalo's lost a lot on defense. Their two interior defensive linemen were out yesterday. Matt Milano's out for the year. Tre'Davious White's out for the year. So they've lost a lot there. And I think the Jets do have some weapons.
The Patriots were without a lot yesterday on defense. Obviously, their top two defensive players have been out. Keon White was out. They were. That's why it's like I'm not necessarily giving the Bills a pass because it's like, yeah, injuries suck. I mean, they do. They really, it's the nature of the game. But like every team deals with that. That's why I always give that like pushback when especially Chiefs fans do the whole, oh, well, they had this injury on this line. And I'm like, great, it's football. Every team is dealing with something at some point late in the season. And yeah, sometimes some teams deal with it a little bit more, but every team has to overcome injuries. So I'm not, gonna completely chalk everything up to injuries. Now you can say, oh yeah, look, the Patriots defense took a hit because, well, their two best players are injured. Sure. But eventually you just have to adjust and deal with it, stop using it as an excuse. And I think that's where the Bills are right now. It's like, oh, we lost Von Miller and Matt Milano's out now. And oh my God, I can't believe we're victims of the injury bug again. Well, get over it. You have a lot of talent on that team. You should be able to win football games, certainly against teams like the Patriots, who I don't think any of us believe are a great team. At best, they're a pretty good team, but that seems to come and go week to week, sometimes quarter to quarter. So,
and they were fortunate to beat the Giants last week, 14-9.
Right, exactly.
Right. I mean, that was one that they had three impressive wins again against the Raiders, Washington. Yes, the Miami win is impressive, although the more we see in Miami, wasn't that impressive? Miami with their 5 wins against 5 teams that have a grand total of 8 wins this year.
Yeah.
And when Miami plays someone good, it looks like they're overwhelmed, whether it was against Buffalo or Philadelphia. So, yeah, I mean, Buffalo, I didn't pick them to win the division before the season started. I may have had them as a fringe playoff team. Kind of the same thing with Miami. I think they both were exposed somewhat yesterday.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I think we've had, rightfully so, doubts about Miami because of their defense. And every time, like you said, every time we see them against a good team, that becomes a very apparent. And the Bills just, again, they seem to play down to whatever competition that they're
Mhm.
playing, and that's not a good thing because more often than not, I mean, they're gonna. I wouldn't trust the Bills moving forward. Just because again, it seems like they're moving backward. But anyways, surprising win for the Patriots. That was fun. Like I said, I was wrong about just about everything. This past weekend, it was actually, I thought maybe it would work in the Patriots' favor, and it did. It did, so I'm okay with that. Um, I think that the Lions might have been obviously the most disappointed, right? I mean,
Oof.
we both, the funny thing is, last week we sat here, we both went with the Lions as the best. We did our weekly power rankings, and there was a lot of like, it's not like they were just knocking it. Oh my God, there are so much. They're clearly the best team. No, they were just kind of like, no, I think out of all the elite teams, quote unquote. Yeah, Kyle says he loves seeing the Lions lose. Kyle's a Packers fan. No, so it might be a little biased
How
there.
do the Packers look without Aaron Rodgers?
Oof.
A little bit different,
They
huh?
look like the Patriots without Tom Brady.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean the Lions just 38-6. Now that's the type of loss that makes you continually just say, you know what, I just can't believe in the Lions. Like we were getting so close to being like, look, the Lions, they're finally Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, it could be an MVP candidate. And they go and lose 38-6. Now, it was against Baltimore. Baltimore's a good team, but they just haven't been playing great. So you got a Baltimore team that was kind of reeling in a way. And great teams take advantage of that. Great teams kind of put them out of their misery. But the Lions came in and basically gave them life and got blown out. And it was just, I'm not a Lions fan. I'm not necessarily a fan of teams that go, I'm not an anti-fan of teams that Detroit's rival with. So I don't really have any stake in them winning or losing other than, hey, it would have been nice to have been right for at least a week when we said the Lions were the best team in the league. But clearly they have issues to work through because losing 38-6 in any form or fashion is not a good thing, and certainly not something that gives you confidence about this Lions team being different than Lions teams in the past. So very disappointing for them.
Yeah, I mean, it would appear to be after yesterday, and we'll see what San Francisco does tonight without Deebo Samuel and with Christian McCaffrey being questionable. They're going to Minnesota. Minnesota's always involved in these close games. But the three best teams in football, I would think, and I'm sure we'll have our top five tomorrow, Kansas City, San Francisco, Philadelphia. They each have one loss right now, and those losses were close. I mean, the Chiefs lost on opening night by 1 point to the Lions. Philadelphia lost to the Jets in kind of a weird game where Jalen Hurts had 3 interceptions. And San Francisco missed a field goal that was makeable to lose to the Browns.
Yeah.
The Browns have a good defense, although it did show it yesterday against the Colts. But those three teams, at least when they lose, they're kind of there.
Yeah.
Like, once in a while you will see even a good team. I mean, even in the Patriots dynasty, they'd have like one game a year where it was like, man, they don't look themselves. But they had so much equity built up that you knew they'd come back the next week and be fine. Remember that loss in 2010 to the Browns? Peyton Hillis had this massive game against them, and I'm
got him He got him the cover of Madden.
Yeah, and then the Patriots didn't lose another regular season game because they're the Patriots, right? So you see this with the high end teams that it's a horrible game. Even the Packers, and again, I'm not putting the Packers on the same level as the Patriots over the last 20 years, but I remember back in 2019, the Packers had like disastrous games at the Chargers and at San Francisco. The next week they came back and won because that's what good teams do. They get stabilized. We'll see what Detroit does next week. They're fortunate. Monday night they host the Raiders, so that could be a get right game for the Lions.
Oh, this is definitely a get right game. I mean, talk about Raiders stink. I mean, it's just and that's kind of the thing too. And I agree. I think those three teams are clearly the best, and they kind of been among the three best, if not the three best, this entire season.
Yep.
I mean, other teams have kind of poked their head, like I said, last week the Lions, at times the Bills. But I think, unlike in years past, I just don't know if the gap between them and the rest of the group is as big as it has been. Because in years past we look and we're like, oh no, these are the elite teams. This team is undefeated. Even San Francisco, Philly, and Kansas City, you can all kind of you can kind of pick out flaws here and there and be like, yeah, they're kind of vulnerable if they play this, that, or the other. So I definitely think those are the three games that three teams that are clearly kind of head and not head and shoulders, but maybe head above everyone else. And then everyone else is kind of like in that next like little grouping. But I mean, that could change in a couple of weeks. And
Sure.
Braden brings up a great point. He said he'd still take Detroit to win a playoff game over Dallas. And I'm like, you know what? I might believe that because Dallas is Dallas, man. I mean, they're still the team that hasn't won anything since 1995. And quite frankly, do you believe in Dallas, John? At all?
But I picked them to go to the Super Bowl.
I know.
I don't know. I'll put it this way: my Super Bowl pick was Cincinnati, Dallas. I have more confidence in Cincinnati. They're 3-3 because I love the quarterback, and I think the quarterback, will get them through these tough times. And look, I don't. Would you be shocked if we have a repeat of the conference championship games from last year, which was San Francisco, Philadelphia?
Oh, no.
And Cincinnati, Kansas City. I mean, it wouldn't be a shock, right? I mean, Cincinnati would be the outlier now because they're 3-3, but those other three teams do look solid. But Dallas. But Dallas is so frustrating. And they didn't even play yesterday. I'm so frustrated.
It's like because you knew if they did, they would have probably screwed something up.
Right. Blame them for something they didn't do. Those Cowboys. Well, they didn't play.
Those Cowboys. How about them Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys?
No, look, and that's the thing too. It's like, yeah, maybe I believe that I would rather, or not rather, but I believe that the Lions are more likely to actually win a playoff game than the Cowboys. But kind of that kind of, going back to Cincinnati real quick, that kind of speaks to the point that we're trying to make, that the gap really isn't that big. So if any year a team could kind of come back and get themselves in the mix, it's absolutely this year with Cincinnati, and it really depends on how great Joe Burrow is. Cause I think, health and just playing more consistently is going to win a lot of games for this Bengals team. So we'll see. But before we go, I do have to mention this though. Boston Bruins are 5-0. Again, another great start. I'm not getting too excited because, saw what 65 wins get you this past year. Like I said, I'd rather 75 wins altogether, meaning 59 in the regular season, 16 in the postseason. I'd be okay with that. But no, I think and the Red Wings 5-1, same number of points as the Bruins, but the three teams kind of like we're just talking about, just kind of like last year. It's the Golden Knights, defending Stanley Cup champions, the Colorado Avalanche, the previous years. Yep, yes, Braden. The Avs are on pace to go 82-0, tying the Boston Bruins and Golden Knights. Three teams. So I don't know how that's going to work because I know the Golden Knights and Colorado play each other, but perhaps they both get wins in the same game. Who knows? That's how good they are. But those three teams and the Boston Bruins are the only undefeated teams. And by that, I mean, they have not lost either in regulation or in overtime or a stupid shootout. I still hate the shootout, and I don't think I've hated something consistently for as long as I've hated the shootout.
Yeah, you're pretty clear on that. Absolutely. Yeah. And, I think in the regular season, I mean, would you just go to a 5-minute overtime, go 3-on-3? I'd go. Which is kind of gimmicky too, but
no, I'd rather go 10 minutes of either 4-on-4. I'd live with 3-on-3 overtime because at least it resembles some semblance of hockey. There's strategy, there's playing, and at the end of the day, like, look, how many games do you think, or how many overtime periods are going to end after 10 minutes in 3-on-3 and not have one person score? I'd say the percentages are very, very low, and I'd rather live with a tie in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, then especially if Connor McDavid's on the ice. He's going to score. Yeah, right.
The ice. It's so yes, and the trapezoid. Thank you, Kyle. I'm a goalie. I hate the trapezoid.
Hey, your favorite goalie. That's the reason that rule was enacted.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, don't hate the player, hate the game.
No.
So that's what I do because, like, at the end of the day, I'd much rather see a few ties here and there than to see some great. I hate when great games just end in a shootout. It kills me. I hate it. I hate it. So, anyways, we'll end on that note. I'll come back tomorrow with my monologue on why I hate the shootout, and I'll get really poetic with it. So, besides that, though, Monday night, who do you got tonight? Seal their fate, because basically whoever we pick lose. So, who's unfortunately going to lose tonight? I.e., who do you think is going to win?
I think San Francisco will win, but I think it'll be a close game. Minnesota's always involved in these close games. San Francisco was banged up, but the 49ers will find a way to win. But I think Minnesota covers the 7-point spread.
Yeah, hey, look, I agree with you. I'm just hoping that I get some good points out of the San Francisco defense, because, well, that's my I got a fantasy, and I'm getting ready to make some moves. About to move to 5-2 if I can get a decent game out of them, and hopefully TJ Hawkinson doesn't have a career day. But if you notice that Hawkinson has like 3 touchdowns and 200 some odd yards, just know that I will be coming in a very bad mood tomorrow. So, anyways, thank you. That's going to do it for us here today. We will, like I said, be back tomorrow. We'll talk about Monday Night Football, and well, hey, who knows? Maybe you'll get me on another shootout rant, and we'll do some more of that. But that's going to do it, and we'll see you then.